Hello viewers and welcome once again to a very special edition of this program, and this is on the occasion of Gandhi Jayanti. As we all know that Gandhi Jayanti falls on the 2nd of October every year, the father of the nation as we know him as, and yes, we are here gathered in the studios of Doordarshan to talk about his philosophy, the Gandhian philosophy. Essentially, Gandhian philosophy are a set of ideals and ideas that Gandhi himself practiced and propagated when he was in South Africa, and later when he came to India, he practiced them fully. They encompass philosophies like satyagraha, philosophies like truth, to abide by it at all time, at all cost, and of course non-violence and many others. So today we are gathered here to understand the relevance of this Gandhian philosophy in today's times, and especially among the youth of this day. So gathered in the studio are three young scholars, young teachers from different colleges, and they will be here with me to talk about Gandhian philosophy and how relevant are these ideals and philosophies in the modern present day of today. Joining me in this discussion is, beside me, Adriel Marak. He is a faculty from the Department of Political Science from St. Edmund's College, Shillong. We are also being joined by Wanda Shisha Mary Nongri. She is an assistant professor from the Department of Philosophy from St. Anthony's College, and next to her is another young scholar, Shubhankar Sharma. He is also a faculty from the Department of Sociology from St. Edmund's College, Shillong. So a very warm welcome to all of you to this program today, where we are speaking about Gandhian philosophy especially, and how it is relevant, whether it is or it is not so relevant in today's times and period. So thank you so much for coming to the studios. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I come to you, Wanda, firstly. Since we are talking about Gandhian ideology or Gandhian philosophy, can you just summarize for us some of his essential philosophies?
There are a lot of things when it comes to Gandhi and his philosophy, as you have already in your address too. You have talked about his ideals and what he thinks. And if you look at Gandhi and everything that he propagated and that he advocated in his entire life was all about, we can see it was all about ahimsa, non-violence, then satyagraha, truth. And there are many other philosophical ideas that he wanted to impart among the citizens of India. So particularly if we look at the concept, if we talk about ahimsa too, Gandhi we will all be knowing about Gandhi talking about non-violence, which we call it a negative meaning of ahimsa. But what caught my interest was the fact that he lays so much of an emphasis on the concept of ahimsa in the positive sense, whereby he concentrated on love. And he says that love is one of the key aspect of non-violence, because with love there's so much of forgiveness, there's so much of self-surrender. And if you look at his ideas, it's what he has learned, whether it is from the background himself or whether it was during his studies. So everything is Gandhi himself has emphasized on these different things. And when we talk about, there are many other things. If I have to name the principle also that Gandhi had visioned, the three principles that see no, that the three principles that he talk about, that see no evil, hear no evil, and talk no evil.
Absolutely.
He emphasized on all these three things. And particularly if we talk about the generation today also, we are actually a generation who's very quick to make judgments, who's very quick to think about so many things.
Right. Quickly, let me just bring in Adriel now in this. What Wanda has just stressed about the ideals, the philosophies of Gandhi. Those were in those years, in his time, where the world was different. Today, we are much more progressive, much more modern. We are very different today. Technology has made us almost robotic. Do you think that those principles can be ideally be replaced and practiced in today's time?
Like what ma'am has just spoken, I agree what she has said about Gandhi. And regarding whether Gandhi's ideas are still relevant today, I want to illustrate using the example of our Prime Minister. When he visited Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, currently they are going through one of the worst crises, I believe, in the special military operation of Russia, and he visited the statue of Gandhi. So that for me is an indicator that Gandhi's ideas are still very relevant in today's context. And when we are looking at the situation in our state of Meghalaya today, I believe when we are looking at the principle of Swaraj, self-rule, this principle as advocated by Gandhi, it goes beyond the political realm, and it has actually a personal dimension which has social consequences and also political consequences. Therefore, I believe Gandhi's ideas are very much relevant, and I believe when we are
doable.
It is
practicable
very much
still.
Of course,
Yeah,
ma'am.
yeah.
It is very much doable. However, I agree the social context has changed, the political context has changed. However, ideas as we know it are fluid enough to be made relevant even in today's context, and it is up to the intellectuals, those who are learned, to be able to understand what are the present circumstances and be able to bring the principles into fruition at this juncture.
Okay. So those points very well noted and very well spoken. Let me bring in Shubhankar here. Shubhankar, you are from the sociology where you study, man and his, relationship with society and everything around him. In this context, how much do you agree with what Adriel has said? Because as I again say, times have changed. Youth of today are quite impatient. They want quick results. Maybe some of the values also have corroded or eroded with time. So those are values that Gandhiji thought of was of those days when life was simpler, it was more easy. But today, we are always on the fast mode, on the fast track, right? So in this time, do you think the youth can still abide by these philosophies?
Thank you, ma'am. Continuing from where Ma'am Wanda and Sir Adriel was speaking about, particularly, I have to analyze Gandhian principles of philosophies from a little sociological perspective. He was someone who was always against what we commonly know as the practice of untouchability. Now, the question here is, even though we are in the 21st century, we are in 2024, is the whole social stratification agent of caste really not there, or is it still there? Certainly, it is there in our Indian social milieu, and thereon, till today, more or less, in our newspapers and other daily records, we will find that people are still contesting or having a very hard time going with the oppressions of untouchability, going with the oppressions of caste affirmations. If someone from a lower caste, they are not at all portrayed as someone who can be socially accepted, who can be socially legitimate, and they are still having the pressure of even fetching common water from a public well. These are still records we can find about. How are the youth still holding up to these principles of non-violence and truth? That is a very important question we can figure out. Right now, if you think or recall what is happening in the northeastern India, or particularly in the state of Manipur for the last 1 year and continuing, is there the principle of non-violence really in practice? Is the principle of truth by the youth, particularly school and college going students, really following? That is a very important question, because every now and then, as you rightly mentioned, everyone is in a very massive rat race. Everyone wants quick results, everyone wants easy spoon-fed results, and they do not want anything to go against, practice something for non-violence. If they are frustrated, if they are having an enmity, all they want is let's fight, let's rebuttal, let's show how muscular, how powerful we are. But he was telling that, if I can rephrase one of his very famous quote, it is far more better to have non-violence rather than to have mass destruction. Right. So having non-violence, we can peacefully have a better result. We can have a peaceful settlement rather than showing something of blood, showing something of war, showing something of violence. So that is something we still probably we have drifted from his core ideals and principles, and we are trying to have a very different understanding of what he dreamt and what he was trying to project for the larger society.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have drifted away because these core values I think many of these core values that we are talking about comes from the home, right from childhood, right? but are they being practiced even at home? Wanda, I bring you in once again. In which ways and arenas or areas you feel that we have moved away from the Gandhian philosophy?
As both of my co-speakers have already said, that when it comes to Gandhi and his philosophy, and particularly the practices, do we still follow them, or are they still applicable to the let's not only talk about the youths of today, but if we talk about the entire people, especially in India itself. So I feel like most people have forgotten about the daily, let's say, the daily teachings that we incur in our day-to-day life. And I want to focus on one thing about Gandhi when he said about, when he was talking about love and all these things, he said that we need to have a self-control. Temperance is very important. Balancing one's own life is very important. And what we are missing is that thing, balancing our life. To have a balance in our life, that sense of adjusting to things in our life, that is very much missing among the people of today. And we cannot control our anger, we cannot even control our greed, we cannot even control some of our emotional, let's say some of our emotional day-to-day life that we're facing. Also, there's so many things, so many emotions that we as youth, also I can also count myself as one of them, so we are actually going through, and we cannot fight all those things. But whereas when we look at Gandhi's life, when we observed at his life and look at all the struggles that he went through in South Africa or in any part of the world, he struggled because of the color of his skin. So I feel like so much of, there's so much of, even inside Gandhi also, I feel there's so much of control, there's so much of patience inside him, and we are running out of patience.
Absolutely, that is what we are becoming increasingly intolerant. Anything different, anything that doesn't fit within the mold that we as society have set up, if we are intolerant, we should always fit within the mold. Now, I just want to bring to focus, there are a lot of students' agitation that goes on, and invariably they become violent, right? You being a political scientist or an analyst of all this, even when we come to the local context, do you look at it also that we so easily get carried away and then go in the violent path?
Ma'am, you're quite right when you have observed that there's a tendency to move towards the path of violence. And as my co-panelists have also brought out, concerning how we have drifted away from the principles of, let's look at ahimsa only, or non-violence, peace. When we look at the constitution of our country, Article 21, it promotes the right to life for every individual. Article 19, it promotes the freedom of speech and expression. Now, if for any chance I have an opinion which differs from the opinion of the majority, that should not be a ground for violence to be perpetrated against me. So this shows, this deviation that we can look at, it shows how we have drifted away. But the fact that we have recognized it, and the fact that we are discussing about this issue at this hour, this is an indicator that yes, we are moving in a direction which we should be going. We are moving. Self-reflective. We are self-reflective. So I believe this is a very constructive exercise.
Okay.
And concerning.
So all is not so bleak, that means.
Of course not. Of course not. All is not bleak. However, again, the space, as I said, if the intellectuals of our local place, that is Shillong, if we do not let the intellectuals take up the vacuum that is there, the political discourse will be undertaken by people who do not have the proper knowledge of how to conduct themselves in a civil society.
Okay, so that's another good point. Let me bring in some of his other ideals, and one of it that we are practicing this entire month, in fact, is on cleanliness, right? He laid a lot of stress on it. Not only the cleanliness within you, he stressed on that, but also around you, right? Once he said that you cannot keep your towns and your cities clean unless one takes up the broom and the bucket himself or herself. How do you look at it? Because when we look at the cleanliness aspect of it in society, it is not a very healthy practice that we are following. We prefer to keep our homes clean, but outside we mess it up very badly.
Ma'am, if I can recollect correctly, there's a famous saying that goes, cleanliness is always next to godliness, and I've been always hearing that.
Right.
But the question is, how far are we really practicing it in the truest of sense? Because if you look in the local context here, any tourist that they come, the first question is, Shillong has got something to do with its hygiene, something to do with its cleanliness, something to do with its social surrounding. Because as you rightly mentioned, if, for example, you are having a garbage at home, till the moment you try to drop it in the garbage truck, it's fine. But the moment you see a same garbage lying outside, you feel it's very impure and you will get intoxicated. So from a sociological perspective, we always try to understand that how something that was all inside your house was considered pure, but the moment it goes out, we think it as impure, being polluted, being intoxicated. So the question here is, what is really making us understand that in that very different context? Because that was certainly not what Gandhi talked about. And to that, if I can also add the principle of Sarvodaya, because he was very much always promoting on upliftment or well-being of everyone, not just one specific section. But today, if I talk with a sense of modernity, with a sense of urbanization, we are always in a sense of self-upliftment, self-realization, and very individualistic, very self-centric. Rather than going together in the same block, we are always focused, how can I cross a step ahead and the rest be lead back.
I think so that is a very important point that you brought out, Shubhankar, because to move together is the common good for the for everybody, right? But that we don't see it today. Everybody is hunky dory for their own selves. So Wanda Shisha, how would you look this aspect of it?
Regarding this thing, I would like to highlight a Sanskrit word that Gandhi uses. It's tapasya. He says this is missing. When we meditate, we are. There's no sense of, because in today's world there is confidence in so much. In all of us is so much of confidence, but there's a lack of the sense of direction. And if we look at this particular thing, Gandhi has highlighted about tapasya. That means we need to meditate, we need to concentrate on life. So if we have this amount of concentration on a life, we can rebuild what we have, what we have actually destroyed to a certain extent. So I would like to...
And I think the same applies to our environment and our surroundings. Yes, also. So much of destruction, as if we are the only ones, right? Adriel, I want to again highlight another point. Gandhiji was also a strategist in the sense he knew exactly what to do at the given situation. How do you look at this?
Ma'am, let me continue where ma'am has also left off at concerning the lack of direction. Ma'am, let's just look at the perspective of cleanliness. Ma'am, when I was in my BA, walking from my home to college, it used to take me about 20 minutes. And there was one fact which always startled me. And this was, whenever, supposing I was drinking a packet of juice from my home to class, there was not a single dustbin where I could dispose of my, you can say, rejects when I was walking. And there were no restrooms, public restrooms, in between Nongthmai to Laimukra. And this reflects the lack of strategy. And Gandhi, being a wonderful strategist, he understood the, I would use the word cultural niche, if this is appropriate, of the English. And he struck where it hurt the English the most. He did not strike them with, let's say, the barrel of a gun, but he struck them with their conscience. And where he hit them was with the principles of peace. Now, how can you, as a human being, morally fire upon a crowd which is peacefully gathered? So he understood the context very, very well. And as 1919 approached, it opened a wonderful opportunity for him to commence his the first mass movement in India. And likewise, looking at what he did in 1919 onwards and carrying it forward today to our present context, I believe there is a lot of scope for direction. There is a lot of scope for strategizing how we are going to move ahead as a society whether we are looking at our environment, whether we are looking at how we relate with different communities in our city. So we need to have a proper strategy, whether it comes to education as well. I believe there is a lot of scope.
Absolutely. So that means our youth are maybe a little I will not say directionless, but a little misguided. Yeah. Because of what? Because maybe they don't have the role models, or maybe somebody to lead them. Would you look? But then why would they not follow Gandhian, or does it take them too far? They need somebody in their situation now, like in the contemporary of today.
Ma'am, since we are very much in a very cosmopolitan age, particularly now, in a very modern, westernized culture, I feel the youths of India specifically, here in this regard, they're always very much fascinated to someone from the outside world, someone from the West. Why not take someone from the local context, someone from the regional context, someone from your domestic arena, rather than fantasizing someone whom you probably have no clue about in the truest of sense. As much as someone can give you the whole picture of who Gandhi is, what the Gandhian principles are, rather than someone from the West or from another part of the world. That is where I believe we are already being misguided. Our interpretation is very much blurred. We are always very much in a wrong world, in a delusional world, where you do not get to know what is right and what is supposed to be intaked and what is supposed to be left out.
Absolutely, I agree with you totally, because many of these Gandhian ideologies are from Indian culture itself. Right? And our Indian culture is full of values, right? Vanda, would you also say that what he said, that we have moved away and embraced westernization so much that we are actually missing out on the core values of Indian or indigenous or our own culture, whichever culture we belong to?
Yes, we are actually very much, influenced and quoted by the others, so much that we forget our own traditions. Particularly if we focus at our very own, if I have to focus on my very own tradition itself, many of us, we are running away from all those things because we consider them to be, not to be, let's say, not to be relevant in today's world. But I feel particularly when it comes to Gandhi also, like, they are the simple things that we have to, like non-violence and all these things, but yet they are so difficult. And the people of today also, they find all these things quite difficult, and not just difficult, but they want to pursue other things in their life, let's say in their day-to-day life, moving away from the traditional, moving away from the moral aspect of our culture.
Absolutely, mutual coexistence is very much possible. So as we are almost summarizing, Adriel, how would you see to the fact that his philosophies remain, to the fore, and we still continue to practice them?
Well, ma'am, first and foremost, the central government in the Ministry of Education, Government of India, they have a special division called the Indian Knowledge System. So I believe very much the ideas and principles of Gandhi will be preserved. However, the question is it just going to be preserved, or is it also going to be practiced?
Exactly.
Now, I believe if we are able to incorporate the simple things of Gandhi,
Right.
let's say cleanliness, how we groom ourselves, and let's move to how we keep our surroundings clean. Let us not only look at our, let's say, our neighborhood, but let us go beyond our neighborhood and let us look at the interests of the people coming from outside as well. I believe we have a lot more to learn, we have a lot more to give, and I certainly believe with the right strategy, with the right motivation, we will be able to move in a progressive direction in line with Gandhi. And having said that, what would that direction be? That direction would be, as Sir has said, about the point of Sarvodaya, that is the benefit for all. And I believe if we are able to incorporate the smallest of the smallest facts, we would be able to overcome. Let us again look at ourselves individually. Being youths, we are highly impatient people. Now let us start by having peace with ourselves first, ahimsa with ourselves first, and then let us expect to have ahimsa with our neighbors and our neighbors' neighbors. I believe in the smallest of the smallest ways, Gandhi advocating decentralization, I believe we'll be able to move in a direction, but it has to start with ourselves first.
Exactly. How wonderfully spoken, you know. If we have to bring the change, because he always said, if you have to bring the change, start it with yourself, right? Start it with oneself. And definitely, despite the fact that, you know, he belonged to a different era, and today we are in a different era, many of his principles are very much doable, practicable, and will definitely, in fact, lead the youth in the right, you know, right path. Right? So on that note, I thank each one of you, you know, Wanda, Shisha, Mary, Nongbri for coming, even Adrian and Shubhankar for coming to the studios of Doordarshan and enlightening our viewers and all who are watching this program so well. And yes, indeed, as all of you said, the very fact that we are discussing this topic today, that itself shows that we are in the right track and that his philosophies are still very much relevant. On that note, we take your leave. Thank you so much, dear viewers, for joining in this program. And until next time, it's bye-bye from all four of us from the studios of Doordarshan. Shalom.